will be available at www.dallasclimateaction.com. Please enter your questions into the Q&A feature in WebEx, and we will strive to answer as many questions as we can during each of the program's segments. The Q&A queue is being monitored, and we'll try to take as many questions as possible during the time allotted. To the presenters, please keep your answers as succinct as possible in an effort to end the symposium by noon. So, by way of background, as you may know, the city of Dallas has been a leader in the fight against climate change. Although we're in an inland city, we're one of the largest in the US. So as we grow, slowing down climate change is a key initiative for the city. City leadership, the city council, and the communities they represent have been collaborating on climate solutions for quite some time. For example, in 2019, council adopted a green energy policy which commits the city to using 100% renewable energy for municipal operations and initiating the development of on and off site generation of renewable power. In 2020, the city unanimously adopted its first ever climate action plan called the Comprehensive Environmental and Climate Action Plan, or CCAP. We are currently in our second year of CCAP implementation. During the first year of implementation, we focused on building capacity. This year, we're transitioning more towards program implementation, and we'll hear some examples of the great work that is currently underway during today's symposium. Now, I'll introduce our first speaker. It's a joy to introduce Councilmember Paula Blackman. Councilmember Blackman represents Dallas's 9th District, and she is a 25-year resident of East Dallas. As many of you know, Councilmember Blackman served in a number of key positions. Well, let me go back. As many of you know, Councilmember Blackman is the chair of the Environment and Sustainability Committee, which is important for us. Prior to joining the council, Councilmember Blackman served in a number of key positions, including Deputy Chief of Staff to former Dallas Mayor Tom Leppert, Chief of Staff to Mayor Mike Rawlings, and Senior Advisor for Dallas Independent School District Superintendent Mike Miles. As a political strategist, the council member successfully helped public servants shape and execute political campaigns such as the recent TRE for Dallas ISD, many mayoral efforts, as well as state-focused campaigns. Councilmember Blackman has also served in legislative and policy roles with former State Representative Dale Tillery and State Representative Harriet Earhart, as well as a community representative and state and local affairs manager for Dallas Area Rapid Transit. It is a pleasure to introduce our chair, Councilmember Blackman.
Well, thank you, Carlos, and we are thrilled to have you on board. I think we have done quite a bit of touring and talking and really focusing on what we've done as a city to our communities and trying to work in making sure that there is a better path forward and a more robust discussion. And so, Carlos, I want to thank you for bringing your expertise, your knowledge, your passion to Dallas, to the city, because you didn't have to come here, but you chose to come here. And so I am happy to be partnering with you and all of your departments. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart of taking the call and coming to Dallas. So good morning, and thank you all for being here today. And as mentioned, I am honored to serve as the chair of the city's Environment and Sustainability Committee, and I am excited to share some of the progress that we have been making towards implementing CCAP. As you know, CCAP implementation goals for 22 center around continued efforts to maintain the city as a leader in reducing emissions, setting the path forward towards addressing climate and environmental risk with effective, equitable, and common sense approaches and solutions. And we've seen that in, more and more of our violent storms that come through North Texas is making it very clear that we have to have a very sensible approach. In the FY 2020 plan, we include 263 milestones addressing 73 CCAP actions. Let me say that again. It's a total of 263 milestones addressing 73 actions. And that is and you have a small group to do this with and a small budget. And but we are committed and we're going to get it done. Some of the key policy topics include, but they're not limited to, sustainable procurement policy, and we're updating that, updating to the green building policy towards a net zero construction, looking at related building code updates, development code updates relative to parking requirements and site green factors, and policies concerning siting and implementation of solar photovoltaics. I can never say that word. So at the end of Q2, 16 milestones have been completed, some of which include launching the Sustainable Procurement Working Group's inaugural year work plan, initiating the use of the Trek Keeper program for a citywide tree inventory, meet with Encore and other local reps to discuss collaborating on campaign to promote renewable energy in commercial sectors, and as part of the urban agricultural plan, identifying initiatives that support agriculture that provides carbon sequestration benefits. 117 of those 263 milestones are marked ongoing, meaning efforts will be carried out continuously. These initiatives include making data from air monitoring stations available to the public, increasing our tree canopy, and evaluating policies and development code changes to enhance sustainable development, drainage, and erosion control. And just recently, Carlos and I went on a tour looking at all of our injustices that we have placed in some of our communities. And we are working to figure out, and you'll probably be hearing more about that, to really have a good discussion about where these facilities are located and how they operate within our city. And I applaud everybody involved to bringing this to our attention and keeping the conversation going. And I am excited about the progress that has been made and the progress that is forthcoming. I appreciate the leadership of our city, our mayor, and the council for prioritizing our environment and advocacy of so many in the Dallas community. And it makes our job a little easier when we have that support from our community saying, yes, we need more. So it is exciting. But I'll turn it back over to you, Carlos, to get the day started. And I'm happy to be part of it. And I'm happy to be part of the team at the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Blackman. And I'd just say one of the reasons why I came here is because of you and your leadership. You've shown clearly demonstrated, real world solutions to climate change, climate justice, and environmental justice. So we appreciate your leadership. And that's a great segue to our next speaker, who needs no introduction, but I'll introduce her anyway. I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Erthia Nance. Dr. Nance is the new regional administrator for EPA Region 6, which includes the states of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico, and includes 66 tribal nations. Regional Administrator Nance is an environmental engineer who has for 2 decades worked with communities at disproportionate risk of environmental hazards. As a professor and graduate student, Regional Administrator Nance conducted community-based research after Hurricane Katrina, during the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and in communities without safe water and sanitation in Brazil and Mozambique. R.A. Nance has brought her community and equity perspective to her service on the Greater Houston Flood Mitigation Consortium and on the Harris County Community Flood Resilience Task Force. As a public official serving as Director of Disaster Mitigation and Planning for the City of New Orleans after Katrina, Dr. Nance managed $60 million in flood mitigation funds and created the city's first approved plans for hazard mitigation, sustainability, and green energy, which I know that wasn't easy getting those through city government. R.I. Nance has served on the faculty of Texas Southern University, the University of New Orleans, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Virginia Tech. As an attorney who just came from EPA Region 6, I look forward to the leadership of R.A. Nance and what she'll bring to the region and to the agency. It is my honor and privilege to welcome Regional Administrator Nance.
Good morning. I want to
Morning.
extend a warm, good morning. I want to extend a warm thank you to the City of Dallas Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability for inviting me to speak at this year's symposium. I also want to give a shout out to Carlos Evans from your former colleagues at EPA who send their greetings. I'm honored to be here with a knowledgeable and passionate audience to discuss some of the most important issues we as a society are facing. I'm here on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency, Region 6, which covers Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arkansas, 66 tribal nations, and countless communities with environmental health disparities. Our statutory mission is to protect public health and the environment. We will pursue our mission with every tool available. But under this administration, we're aiming to leave no community behind. We are confronting longstanding inequities and to build a better America, one that is healthier, more inclusive, and protective of all people, regardless of race or income. What's new at EPA is that we're reaching everyone. Climate change and environmental justice are at the heart of this administration's policy priorities. I'd like to tell you how we're carrying out those priorities. First, with climate change. Climate change has induced an array of hazards, including increased flooding, higher mean atmospheric temperatures, higher global mean sea levels, increased precipitation, increased droughts, increased atmospheric moisture holding capacity, increased heat waves, increased strength of storms, more energetic waves, storm surges that reach further inland, undercapacity of urban sewerage and drainage systems, increased blight, and increased vulnerability of port cities. Many cities and homes have been built in areas that are vulnerable to disaster, such as along coastlines, floodplains, near forests, and in deserts. Building codes, zoning laws, and construction standards have generally been only partially protective against natural hazards. Furthermore, as climate change has worsened, the damage caused by natural hazards has grown exponentially. This upward trend covers droughts, wildfires, floods, winter storms, freezes, severe storms, and tropical cyclones. Escalating climate threats affect everyone, but disadvantaged populations are more vulnerable because they are unable to displace environmental threats that would cause them harm. For these reasons and more, EPA is moving with a sense of urgency on climate change. President Biden has tasked the EPA to tackle these issues and has committed to cutting greenhouse gas emissions 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by the year 2030, reaching a 100% carbon pollution-free power sector by the year 2035, and achieving a net zero economy no later than the year 2050. Water quality and water resources are directly impacted by climate change, so protecting the nation's water sources and expanding access to clean water are paramount. Add to that Region 6's growing population and energy extraction sector, water quality and water resources are of chief importance. To better protect our vital water resources and to support public health, EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers are revising the definition of waters of the United States, also called WOTUS, W-O-T-U-S. Last year on August 30th, the U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona issued an order to EPA and the Army Corps vacating and remanding the Navigable Waters Protection Rule nationwide. In light of this order, EPA and the Corps halted implementing the Navigable Waters Rule and are interpreting the waters of the U.S. consistent with the pre-2015 regulatory definition. We are seeking feedback from all stakeholders to highlight geographic differences and a range of perspectives, including agriculture, conservation groups, developers, drinking water and wastewater managers, environmental organizations, communities with environmental justice concerns, industries, tribal nations, and state and local governments. We anticipate hosting these regional roundtables virtually over the spring and summer, and will let you know so our voices and concerns can be heard. We recognize that WOTUS, Waters of the United States, has been an uncertainty since 2015, with over 20 lawsuits pending or resolved since then. We're interested in certainty, and that's why the proposed rule is going with the set of rules that has been in place since 1986. According to the Oxford University Press, climate change is a justice issue for 3 reasons. First, its causes are driven by social inequalities. That is, most politically, culturally, and economically marginalized communities and nations use vastly less fossil fuel-based energy. Second, the rich and poor feel its impacts unequally. This is true locally, nationally, and globally. Third, policies designed to manage climate change, including renewable energy sources, adaptation measures, and geoengineering schemes, will have starkly unequal impacts within and across societies. This is in part because decision-making processes for emissions reduction and adaptation policies tend to exclude the politically marginalized. My region will be preparing a climate change adaptation plan, which will be critical because of the outsized role this region plays in the energy sector and the disproportionate climate and pollution impacts faced by our most overburdened residents. The next priority is environmental justice. In addition to the escalating climate hazards just described, some communities also face human-made environmental hazards, such as petrochemical facilities, oil and gas plants, incinerators, hazardous waste landfills, sewage plants, concrete plants, and high diesel truck traffic, among others. These physical facilities are environmental hazards to nearby populations. There is overwhelming research showing that fence-line communities are comprised primarily of people of color, indigenous people, and low-income people. Nationwide, fence-line communities experience disproportionate burdens of exposure to pollution, increased health risk, and environmental health disparities. These communities are also disproportionately impacted by climate-induced hazards. And because of their socioeconomic position, they are less able to mitigate the impacts or escape from harm. With the increasing intensity and frequency of climate-induced hazards everywhere, fence-line communities are at risk of being left further behind. Planning for climate change means planning for those who are most at risk. The most overburdened population groups, which include children, elders, the disabled, women, people of color, indigenous, people in poverty, and people with language other than English, struggle for a place on both the climate agenda and the environmental agenda, even as pollution, greenhouse gases, the energy transition, and climate change are inextricably linked. During his first days in office, President Biden signed an executive order that pledged to prioritize environmental justice and to put the whole of government behind advancing a systematic approach to racial justice, civil rights, and equal opportunity. The executive order established the Justice 40 initiative, which set a goal to deliver 40% of the benefits from federal investments to underserved communities. This is important because some of our policies still marginalize communities. EPA Administrator Regan has already begun integrating President Biden's commitments into the EPA by embedding climate change and environmental justice into everything that we do, including our regulatory, permitting, and enforcement activities. Region 6 is at the forefront of the administrator's environmental justice mission. Many of you know that the administrator personally visited Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi last November on his Journey to Justice tour to listen to community concerns firsthand. EPA is currently outlining a series of broad policy actions that respond to the environmental justice issues the administrator witnessed. And my region is preparing an EJ action plan to guide our efforts. We are committed to resolutely using our authority to conduct unannounced inspections of suspected non-compliant facilities as needed to protect public health. When facilities are found to be non-compliant, EPA will use all available tools to hold facilities accountable. We will be deploying a new program to expand air monitoring capacity, utilizing assets such as our aspect monitoring airplane, our GMAP mobile air monitoring vehicle, and additional air pollution inspectors to enhance enforcement. We also intend to mobilize agency resources to invest in community air monitoring to better protect people and public health in vulnerable areas. We seek better solutions to the current state of air monitoring programs in Region 6 in terms of monitoring locations, the number of monitors, and the detection values being used. Additional broad policy actions include pressing state and local elected officials to take urgent action to better protect the most overburdened communities and holding companies more accountable for their actions by increasing monitoring and oversight of polluting facilities. EPA is also applying best available science to agency policymaking to safeguard public health and protect the environment. In that vein, we are acting on per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, also known as PFAS, PFAS. PFAS are a group of manufactured chemicals that have been used in industry and consumer products since the 1940s because of their useful properties. There are thousands of different PFAS chemicals, some of which have been more widely used and studied than others. One common characteristic of concern of PFAS is that many of them break down very slowly and can build up in people, in animals, and in the environment over time. PFAS can be present in our water, soil, air, and food, as well as in materials found in our homes and workplaces, like our public drinking water systems and private drinking water wells, landfills, disposal sites, and hazardous waste sites, even in food, like fish that's caught from water contaminated with PFAS, and dairy products and milk from livestock that has been exposed to PFAS, and also food packaging. Current peer-reviewed scientific studies have shown that exposure to certain levels of PFAS may lead to reproductive effects such as decreased fertility and increased high blood pressure in pregnant women, developmental effects or delays in children, including low birth weight, accelerated puberty, bone variations, and behavioral changes, increased risk of some cancers, including prostate, kidney, and testicular cancer, reduced ability of the body's immune system to fight infections, including reduced vaccine response, interference with the body's natural hormones, and increased cholesterol levels and risk of obesity. On October 18, 2021, EPA Administrator Regan announced the agency's PFAS strategic roadmap, laying out a whole-of-agency approach to addressing PFAS. The roadmap sets timelines by which EPA plans to take specific actions and commits to bolder new policies to safeguard public health, protect the environment, and hold polluters accountable. The actions described in the PFAS roadmap each represent important and meaningful steps to safeguard communities from PFAS contamination. Cumulatively, these actions will build upon one another and lead to a more enduring and protective solution. As a basic tenet of our approach, the roadmap prioritizes protection of disadvantaged communities because many known and likely sources of PFAS are located near low-income communities and communities of color. EJ concerns are to be considered in pursuing each of the three goals outlined in the roadmap, which are research, restrict, and remediate. We're also going to meet with affected communities in each EPA region to hear how PFAS contamination impacts their lives and livelihoods. Another priority is to distribute federal resources throughout Region 6 and the nation. First is the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, or WIFI. Our priorities will require additional resources, and thanks to the President and to Congress, new resources are coming from three sources: the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, the American Rescue Plan, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, or WIFIA's goal is to accelerate investment in the nation's water infrastructure by providing long-term, low-cost supplemental credit assistance for regionally and nationally significant projects. To date, WIFIA has closed 72 loans totaling $13.3 billion in credit assistance to help finance over $28 billion in water infrastructure projects and create 81,000 jobs while serving 37 million people. In the first year of the Biden-Harris administration, WIFIA invested more than $5 billion in communities across the nation. This past December, we announced the selection of 39 new projects for WIFIA loans and added 4 more to the waiting list. We anticipate that as funds become available, $6.7 billion in WIFI loans will help finance over $15 billion in water infrastructure projects to protect public health and water quality in 24 states. These projects will create good-paying jobs and safeguard public health, especially in underserved communities. The WIFI program is making $1.2 billion in loans available to support infrastructure in these historically underserved communities. Additionally, 14 projects will help protect infrastructure from the impacts of extreme weather events and the climate crisis. New and innovative approaches, including cybersecurity, green infrastructure, and water reuse, are included in the 24 projects. Besides WIFIA, the American Rescue Plan earmarks $100 million for EPA, including $50 million targeted specifically to advance environmental justice, and at least $40 million to help states, tribes, and localities improve air quality for their communities. We are currently working to determine the best uses of American Rescue Plan funds. We are identifying where dollars will go the furthest in helping communities that are hit hardest from COVID, the economic downturn, and environmental health risks. The President's bipartisan infrastructure law will utilize billions of dollars for infrastructure improvement projects and represents the largest in EPA's budget increase since we were founded in 1970. Over the next 5 years, EPA will invest more than $60 billion to improve the nation's infrastructure, expand access to clean water, address long-standing environmental contamination, address the climate crisis, and advance environmental justice. EPA is providing $23.4 billion from the infrastructure law into state revolving funds over the next 5 years. The infrastructure law will create jobs while upgrading America's aging infrastructure for water and addressing key challenges. Texas alone will receive roughly $507 million in the form of grants and loan forgiveness. The bipartisan infrastructure law is a historic opportunity to correct long-standing environmental economic injustices across America from inequitable funding. The implementation of the infrastructure law calls for a strong partnership, and EPA is ready to work with local partners, like many of you who are here, to ensure that all communities see and feel the benefits of this investment. That's why in December, Administrator Regan sent a letter to governors encouraging states to maximize the impact of water funding from the law to address disproportionate environmental burdens in historically underserved communities across the country. EPA has announced $3.5 billion investment from the infrastructure law to initiate cleanup and to clear the backlog of 49 previously unfunded Superfund sites, and to accelerate cleanup at dozens of other sites across the country. EPA is also providing $5 billion to replace diesel school buses with zero and low emission school buses, $15 billion to replace every lead service line in the country, $1.5 billion for brownfields redevelopment, and more. Approximately 60% of the sites receiving funding for new cleanup projects are in historically underserved communities. Communities living near many of the most serious, uncontrolled, and abandoned releases of contamination will finally get the public health and environmental protections needed. And my last point is going to be on the role of science. Since his first day in office, President Biden has made science a central theme of his agenda. I'm specifically referring to his memorandum on restoring trust in government through scientific integrity and evidence-based policymaking, dated January 27, 2021. Better science is critical to meeting the goals of Region 6. Communities and nonprofit advocacy groups have complained for many years about cumulative public health impacts, lack of science-based and health-based standards, inadequate monitoring, lack of transparency in the communication of risk, and lack of decisive action to prevent or stop the most egregious environmental harms. Emerging climate threats will likely follow the same pattern unless intentional changes are made. We must do better, and we will. Because of the current policy priorities of the Biden administration, there has never been such an opportune time for Region 6 to address systemic problems with the best available science. This is a historic opportunity to protect the most vulnerable communities while building infrastructure and projects that improve climate resilience for everyone. EPA Region 6 is ready to take on both existing and newly emerging challenges. My office is just down the road here in Dallas, and my door is always open. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Regional Administrator. And after you just spoke, I feel like going into that door and just sitting on your couch and just speaking for about 2 or 3 hours, picking your brain. But we look forward to partnering with you and prioritizing sound science. Yes, hands clapping. In a way that prioritizing protecting our underserved and overburdened communities. You touched on a lot of great points that are, there's a lot of opportunities to partner with y'all, and we look forward to it. Whether it's weatherization or resiliency hubs or air monitors, the City Council just approved allowing the installation of 24 air monitors, neighborhood air monitors last Wednesday. So I think we can partner on some of that. Of course, we're moving on forward with inspections and investigations. I'm sure we can partner with that.
Absolutely.
And a lot of federal investment opportunities where we can partner and help the city of Dallas. So we appreciate the great comments coming from you and from the EPA.
Well, thank you. I look forward to having a one-on-one meeting with you soon, Carlos.
Yeah, you as well. Now I'll pass it to Assistant Director Susan Alvarez to introduce our next speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our 5th North Texas Climate Symposium. Thank you, Regional Administrator Nance, for joining us, and also Chair Blackman. Our next guest is a new personal favorite of mine. It's a pleasure to introduce the fearless leader of our Environmental Commissioner, Chair Catherine Bazan. Her 14 years of environmental experience include implementing environmental policy at the local municipal level, providing environmental regulatory compliance assistance at the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. She uses her expertise in air, water, and waste, supporting grassroots community campaigns, and to advocate for environmental equity in Dallas. Ms. Bazan is the co-founder and leader of the East Dallas Greater Good, a 2,000-member community action group that champions quality of life issues in Dallas neighborhoods. She serves on Dallas Sierra Club's executive and eco-action committees, where she supports West and Southern Dallas communities in their fights for environmental justice and against industrial encroachment. Like me, she is a certified Texas master naturalist. Not like me, but very much appreciated. She's also the organizer for the Friends of the Old Fish Hatchery at White Rock Lake. Please welcome our Environmental Commission Chair, Ms. Catherine Bazan.
Good morning, Sue and everyone. I am Catherine Bazan, Chair of the Dallas Environmental Commission. Thank you so much for tuning into the Climate Symposium this morning. I am going to share a presentation, and if you'll give me just one moment. All right, and can you confirm that you can see my screen there?
We can see it. We can see it.
We can see it.
Wonderful. All right, so I am going to discuss our new Environmental Commission and how you can become involved to help us address climate change and environmental justice issues in our city. So as we get started, I want to direct you to our website, dallasclimateaction.com, where you'll find my email address along with the names and contact information for all of our commission members, the full comprehensive environmental and climate action plan, or CCAP, our annual work plan progress, and upcoming meeting information. So I'm going to start by giving you a little background of how our commission came to be, and we'll go back to 2019, when after a successful campaign by environmental advocates, the council directed staff to develop a climate plan for the city of Dallas. That took over a year of planning and community engagement and public meetings, and in May of 2020, the Council unanimously adopted what we call CCAP, the Comprehensive Environmental and Climate Action Plan. And I'll just take a quick detour here for those not familiar with the Climate Action Plan, but the CCAP is a comprehensive roadmap that outlines the activities that the City of Dallas will undertake to improve quality of life, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to prepare for the impacts of climate change, all to create a healthier and more prosperous community. It's made up of 8 main goals that are further supported, as Councilwoman Blackman or Chairwoman Blackman mentioned, defined actions within our plan. So we have goals for energy efficient buildings. We have goals for sustainable transportation, water resources, urban agriculture, renewable energy, zero waste, green spaces, and air quality. Again, you can download the entire action plan from our Dallas Climate Action website, and that is where you will also find our annual work plans, including the new 22-23 work plan. So after CCAP was passed, a task force was formed to develop the framework of the Environmental Commission. In April of 2021, the commission was formally created by ordinance. Appointments began in September, and in December of 2021, we reached a quorum of voting members and held our first meeting. Our mission was defined in our ordinance, and it is to advise the City Council on the implementation of the CCAP and to support equitable and effective action to resolve environmental issues as they arise. Our Environment and Sustainability Council Committee, which the Commission reports to, is led by Chairwoman Blackman, who we heard from this morning. And our Commission is supported by City staff with the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, whose director is Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans, as he mentioned, came to us in January from EPA Region 6, where he was an attorney, and he brings his extensive experience and key focus in environmental justice to our city. The commission is made up of 23 members. There are 15 voting members, 1 for each council district, including the mayor. And as you can see, we're nearly fully appointed, having just a few vacancies remaining. The rest of our 23 members are a non-voting panel of technical advisors. So as you'll recall from our previous slide, that the CCAP has 8 goals. So we have 1 expert for each area of our climate plan. Our ordinance also created an environmental health committee, which is made up of 2 of our commissioners with public health experience and 3 non-voting members from the general public with expertise in public health. We have a pulmonologist whose work focuses on asthma and who's interested in air quality issues. Of you know, Dallas-Fort Worth far exceeds both the state and national rates for childhood asthma. Dallas County leads the region for hospitalizations from childhood asthma, and respiratory issues are the leading cause of absenteeism among DISD students. So this was an important addition to our committee. We also have a general family practitioner who is very engaged on community health issues in West Dallas, and an engineer with expertise in water systems and waterborne disease prevention and detection. So now we're going to get into the commission's priorities and how we establish which issues we'll work on. First, we'll talk about the mayor's 2022 committee priorities. So the mayor assigns each of the 8 council committees with 6 priorities for 2022, and of those for our committee included reviewing the mechanisms that allowed for environmental threats such as the lane plating Superfund site, Shingle Mountain, and others to occur, and recommending new codes, new policies, procedures, even zoning changes to such occurrences in the future. Reforming the bulk and trash pickup program to ensure maximum efficiency and proper use. Effectuating resilience strategies in the CCAP, such as creation of green roofs and a solar program. Exploring new equitable policies to address environmental concerns in neighborhoods, including restrictions on gas-powered leaf blowers and a notification program regarding plans to build concrete batch plants. And finally, developing a plan to dredge White Rock Lake. We also have our council committee priorities. So any policy or plan that must first go to committee before going on to the city council for a vote will now be vetted through the commission, and those recommendations will go together to the council committee before then going on to council. And staff works with Chairwoman Blackman to establish an annual forecast of the topics that need to be addressed. We also have council member referred issues for input or consideration. And finally, we have Commissioners who can initiate topics, just as we've done with the concrete batch plant policies we've recently taken up, and our environmental justice and equity initiatives, both which are high among my priorities as chair. We have been appointed to work in partnership with the community that we represent, and that means receiving input from you, our residents. That is key to our success. It also means effectively sharing information about upcoming topics, policy decisions, and environmental issues in the city. And so to support that goal, we've formed an outreach and engagement subcommittee. We've created social media channels and are working on additional ways for community members to stay involved. In the meantime, there are several ways for you to become involved and connect with us. You can participate in meetings, email members of the commission, you can request a meeting directly with the commissioner in your district or in the district where you have a concern, or you can request a presentation like this one for your community. We have really hit the ground running since December on several key issues, including badly needed policy and zoning reforms for concrete batch plants. One of the first items that I requested we be briefed on as a new commission were internal policies related to enhanced internal and external communication for concrete batch plants. That includes an immediate notification to both the council member and the commissioner when the city receives a batch plants application. It would also include cross-departmental checks for permits so that the necessary state environmental and local land use permits are obtained. It would also include GIS mapping of all active batch plants in the city of Dallas. The second effort underway is a zoning code amendment for both temporary and permanent concrete batch and asphalt plants in the city of Dallas. The current zoning code allows for these plants to be located in every zoning district across our city, including residential. Neighborhoods and community members have had the enormous burden of activating community awareness campaigns, getting public meetings with the TCEQ, or community meetings with their local elected official. These phased zoning code revisions will not only eliminate the opportunity for these facilities to be located anywhere but the heaviest industrial manufacturing districts in the city, but it will require them to obtain a specific use permit. And that permit triggers numerous things, starting with a vetting by city staff of the appropriateness and compatibility of that land use. So we've asked staff to also bring back an environmental equity checklist. That is another internal tool that will prevent public projects from bypassing environmental justice considerations from the beginning and ensuring that all of our departments are acting in support of our climate action plans. And we also voted to request that staff add an environmental indicator to the next year's racial equity plan. With a quick preview of some upcoming meeting topics and events. In May, we'll be briefed on the annual CCAP progress and greenhouse gas inventories. And also, I want to mention, we will be at EarthX this weekend. We'll be in Pavilion 100 and invite you to this free, family-friendly event to celebrate Earth Day and to meet your environmental commissioners. And the next meeting of the Environmental Commission is Wednesday, May 11th at 5:30. And we hope that you'll join. Connect with us on social media as @DallasEnvironmental to stay up to date or reach out to us with any questions. So we know that we have a long way to go in our city to begin addressing environmental injustices, to undo decades of environmental racism, to address climate change in real and tangible ways that leave our city a better place for future generations.
Yeah, we can't hear.
Knowledge, their expertise, and their passion for our environment. And together we're ready to help address your environmental concerns. And I look forward to hearing ways that we can work together to protect and improve the environment in Dallas.
Thank you, Chair Bazan. I'll say thank you for your leadership. You've been keeping us on our toes. You're mission driven and supportive of making sure that people's health is really protected. So we appreciate your leadership that you bring to the commission. Are we okay with technically? You can hear me? Okay, good. Sorry, I think we had some technical issues. All right, so next up, I think we want to get to our first panel, correct? All right, let's introduce our environmental justice panel. We have 3 speakers this morning. We have Gerardo Acosta from EPA Region 6. Mr. Acosta is the Staff Director of Environmental Justice, Tribal Affairs, and Environmental Education. We're lucky to have someone who can speak to both EJ and tribal concerns. Next, we have Mr. Raul Reyes. Mr. Reyes has been a leader in the West Dallas community for years, and we are lucky that he's agreed to add his voice to this discussion. Mr. Reyes is the president of West Dallas One, and in this role, as in others he's held, he strives to help the concerns and wishes of his fellow residents to be heard regarding existing businesses in West Dallas and regarding the new development that is underway. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Temekia Darrell. Mr. Rowe sits on the Environmental Commission representing District 7. Commissioner Darrell is the founder of the Jobby Freedmen's Town Association and a longtime resident. She's interested in preserving the unique neighborhood that is Jobby, but also the natural environment that is nearby along the Trinity River corridor. Much like Mr. Reyes, Commissioner Darrell has been a longtime advocate for her community. So at this point, I'll let each panelist spend 1 or 2 minutes saying a few brief words. Director Acosta, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, good morning, Carlos. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure that
Yes.
the sound is so good. Yes, hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us, Carlos, and I'm looking forward to this panel. Back to you.
Right, Mr. Reyes, do you want to say a few brief words?
Good morning, buenos dias. Just glad to be here to have a conversation and hopefully share some ideas and some thoughts on how we can continue to improve quality of life for all of Dallas, and in particular in the area of air quality and environmental justice. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Darrell.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Commissioner Darrell for District 7. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. I'm very excited after Miss Nancy spoke about all the improvements that the EPA has in store for the 2022 and moving forward for environmental change. So thank everyone, and I'm here to get my input. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, so we have, clearly 3 leaders when it comes to climate and environmental justice. We're lucky to have these voices. And I guess I'll start with Director Acosta. I'll start with you. It's safe to say that the Biden administration, after listening to Regional Administrator Nance, it's safe to say that the Biden administration is approaching the subject of climate change differently than the previous administration. What changes have you seen from your perspective where you sit as an environmental justice leader in Region 6 in Dallas?
Well, good morning again to everyone, and thank you for the question, and thanks for inviting EPA Region 6 to this symposium. Like Carlos mentioned, my name is Gerardo Acosta, and I'm the Staff Director for the Office of Community Tribes and Environmental Assessment. And let me tell you how this is an exciting, monumental time for EPA and Region 6. For the first time, I see an administration focusing so many resources on environmental justice and climate change. From the very beginning of this administration, President Biden issued several executive actions to advance environmental justice and equity, including Executive Order 13985 on President Biden's first day. This executive order called upon all federal agencies to have a comprehensive approach to advancing equity for all. EPA and Region 6, under Administrator Regan and Dr. Nance's leadership, have made embedding environmental justice in the agency a priority. EPA has a plan to promote environmental justice and civil rights at the federal, tribal, state, and local levels, embed environmental justice and civil rights into EPA programs, policies, and activities, and strengthen civil rights enforcement in communities with environmental justice concerns. The Biden-Harris administration is closing the gap of systematic inequities in the fabric of all American citizens, from those living in rural and urban areas to those in Native American communities. The administration has tasked every federal agency with the Justice for the Initiative's mandates in ensuring that federal benefits uplift communities who need it the most. President Biden has also made sure overburdened populations get the resources they need to better their communities with the bipartisan infrastructure law, like we heard from Dr. Nance's speech. And this law brings billions of dollars to help communities by doing things such as fixing lead pipes and completing Superfund cleanups. Just last year, we have seen an increase in funding for environmental justice grants 3 times as much as we had the previous 10 years. As the director, my job includes making sure that environmental justice is embedded in all our regional programs and meaningful engagement with communities are priorities. And following Dr. Nance's leadership, the biggest environmental challenges of our time will be determined by the strength of the partnerships EPA is working hard to build. In Region 6, our goal is to have transparent and respectful engagement with all our stakeholders, especially those who endure the bulk of the environmental impact burdens. We work every day to be better in our engagement, to build transformative partnerships, and will continuously strive to improve these relationships. Following the leadership and priorities of this administration, the EPA Administrator and Dr. Nance will continue our efforts to put and address environmental justice in the forefront of everything we do in Region 6. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Director Acosta. So, Mr. Reyes, Commissioner Darrell, you're on the front lines of your communities. We depend on you to be the eyes and ears of our residents, right? Our neighborhoods. Have you experienced climate-related issues in your community? Can you speak to that?
Yes, this Commissioner Darrell, yes. Jobby experienced enhanced air quality and related public health challenges caused by adjoining to an industrial port and weather conditions that trap harmful ozones near the ground. We're very concerned about air quality in Jobby and flooding due to us living on the water trinity and access to transportations and options like that. So yes, the environment and climate reality issues affects Jobby every day. We have the train, we have Union Pacific train running 24 hours a day. We have now the batch companies that's surrounded about Jobby even works on the weekends now. I know they used to work Monday through Friday. Now they're working Saturdays and Sundays. So we are infested with industrial political matter in the air 7 days a week now. So yes, we have those issues. We have experienced all those issues with climate reality related issues.
How about you, Mr. Reyes? I know you're in West Dallas. I know you have a significant number of facilities, polluting facilities in your area. Have you seen climate-related issues?
Yeah, well, not just in West Dallas, but I mean, my experience having lived the last 47 years or 48 years in Dallas, I mean, it's Texas to begin with, and we have funny weather out here, but you can notice that there's changes in the weather right throughout the seasons. Back in 2015, we had what started out as a drought at the beginning of the summer, and then within a matter of a month, we had rain that ended up causing neighborhoods in far West Dallas to be flooded, including the highway system. And that's all within a matter of a month, within the same year and the same season. So it's drastic changes like that we've picked up on. And also things that are man-made as it relates to policy, right? District 6, which is where West Dallas is at, 75 212. You know, we have some of the largest concentration of batch plants and cement plants, along with other type of facilities that pollute, that contribute to the pollution in the air. So it's both nature, but a lot of it, as science has shown, it's what we're doing as a human race. And obviously for us as the city of Dallas, it's, you know, we have to be responsible for our uh, contribution to those natural systems. So I'm glad that we have a citywide policy through CCAT, and I'm glad that we're doing all the right moves as a city to bring in the people that we need to provide the expertise, like yourself. And we're also glad that communities like mine and like Miss DeRose, that have usually been disenfranchised and not listened to, are now contributing to the conversation. But it's a two-way street. It's not just about what the city is doing, is what are we doing as neighbors? What are we doing as citizens of the city? So I'm glad that that participation is a process, and that we're willing to step up and meet that challenge.
No, thank you, and my apologies for limiting you to West Dallas. Your experience is much broader than that. And I guess, you know, from our perspective, from the city's perspective, we're trying to figure out how we can best collaborate with our neighbors in all of our communities, but particularly South and Southern Dallas and West Dallas. You know, have you seen how can we better collaborate with our communities, and are there any successes that have been made with our community members in trying to reduce the impacts of climate change? So I guess, I don't know if you want to speak to that. Where can we improve? Have there been any successes? What's your take on that?
Yes, I'm a prime example. The city, when I got into this work, my community was faced with a special permit for a batch company. And when I went to the city to like oppose it, at first the city was like, huh, you know, Jobby got a problem, you know. But after I organized the community and I noticed that the city was starting to recognize that we are faced with issues with air quality and environmental injustice. So I can contest that the city has really improved on making a change of how environmental injustice is affecting communities like West Dallas, like Jobby, like the Superfund site that we have in Oak Cliff, North Oak Cliff over here. So I can say that, but the city still has a lot of work to do. Improving, I think the improvement is now we have an environmental commission where we have residents in fence line communities, environmental industrial, sitting on a committee, making change and policy changes and regulation changes and ordinance changes is the biggest step that the city of Dallas have did. So I commend them with excellence in protecting the Dallas citizens. And me being a community resident, I live in Jobby and everything, and I feel like as a resident, I'm talking as a resident, not the commission, that my community is getting help. It's getting help. The city of Dallas has improved. They fully have implemented the new ordinance about the batch companies and everything. So I think, yes, they are improving. Do I have any other issues that the city can better? Yes, effectively addressing food security in communities like West Dallas and Jobby, because most of the communities that is faced with environmental injustice have the other biggest issue, food security. So we have moving forward, only thing I can say about improvement is the city of Dallas has to start really investing in food security of communities of low income and areas that is neglected.
No, that's really helpful because, I mean, as you know, the CCAP has 97 actions in it. It's a huge plan, and conversations like this really help us prioritize, you know, what our communities need right now, you know.
Right.
So these you know, these conversations really help. So we appreciate that point about you know, food access and
Yes.
things of that nature.
Yeah, because I feel like Jobby is zoned around my community before you even enter my community. It's zoned industrial. So that lets the economy development and equity side know, well, we can't put a grocery store in this area because it's zoned industrial. Just like West Dallas, even though West Dallas has a little gentrification going on there, but they still have food security issues. So I think it all goes back to how the areas are zoned, and West Dallas and Jobby is just zoned industrial. So
Yeah.
if I was Kroger's CEO and one of the workers come say, well, what you think about putting the Kroger's in West Dallas? And first thing I'm saying, how's it zoned? Blah, blah, blah. And once they say, well, oh, it's industrial zoned, oh, that'll be an issue as a business on a business side. So we just have to correct that. But thank you. You're right.
Yeah. How about you know, weatherization programs? I know we've had you know, severe storms, obviously in North Texas, that have you know, resulted in severe loss of electricity in multiple homes, resulted in you know, injury and unfortunately death. You know, do you think maybe to improve the security of folks' homes, to better weatherize homes so that people's electricity bills are reduced? Maybe resiliency hubs, so when people's electricity gets knocked out, that they have somewhere to go, you know, to recharge, literally recharge their phones, go to the bathroom, and things of that nature. You know, are these types of things that you think will be helpful for our communities?
Yes, I'm real big on the resilience building because the closest one to Jobby is Senior Hills right now, but due to the new development of the Senior Hills Recreation Center. So the closest resilience building in my community is the Senior Hills Recreation. We do need to include more of those buildings around the city of Dallas. I'm gonna let Ralu talk about weatherization because I heard him mention that when the storm hit, some of the community of West Dallas was affected, and he can probably give you more insight on how did they the weatherization and programs of the city of Dallas helped his community.
Thank you, Commissioner Darrell. Yeah, I just want to echo first a couple of things on your first question. Sorry about that.
Hold on, I can't hear it. We can't hear it.
You hear me? Okay.
We can hear you, but yeah.
Okay. It's been a win for all of us, right? For the city of Dallas to have a commission, an entity where the community can participate and have a voice. So I really want to commend the city for pushing that. It gives an opportunity for my neighbors to be able to speak up on issues and to be able to have a table to come to and to represent us. Such, for example, in West Dallas, we have our commissioner, Erthia Nance, who's also the vice chair. So, you know, being that we're a community that historically has been disenfranchised, that hasn't been listened to know that we have a commissioner that now sits, you know, second at the table after Chairwoman Bazan, it it means a lot to us. It just means that we're inching forward. But that said, that means that there's a lot that still needs to happen. If anything, something that can definitely be improved is the education of climate change and climate reality. You know, many of my neighbors are at work from 8 to 5 or even longer. So their focus is making sure that they have, you know, what they need at home. So the way that the city can definitely help out with that is making sure that there's constant education, constant reorientation of the services and the issues that are going on as within the communities, especially those that are identified by CEAS and other priorities that are identified as a city. My encouragement is both ways, is to make sure that the city is doing a constant outreach of its citizens, and that its citizens are making themselves available to participate in the process of, especially in conversations like today. As to weatherization and having a resiliency hub, you know, back in 2020 when we had that deep freeze, West Dallas was one of those communities that was deeply affected. Not only did we do a lot of community effort out here that was led by organizations like West Dallas One, but we also partnered with our city councilman that was able to provide resources such as water and blankets and other things to make sure that it got distributed to our neighbors. And having a hub was very important. So obviously having that established already, instead of having to wait till the event happens, but to have it there, it can definitely serve throughout the year and be able to help those individuals that are still dealing with issues due to climate. I mean, the bottom line is this, you know, we live in Texas, right, where there's challenges to the grid. And many of our homes, that especially here in West Dallas, we have an aging stock, and which means that there is much of that stock has challenges as it relates to its electrical systems, and it doesn't take much to be able to burn out a fuse out here in West Dallas, especially when it's a hot day. And same thing with the cold weather. So having those kind of facilities that are available throughout the year to help residents definitely can help. But again, going back to education, you know, educating our neighbors about the services and the resources that are out there in order to improve their homes when it comes to weatherizing or just making improvements on their homes so they can better sustain what's the buildings, right, and so on. So those are some of the recommendations that I would make, and that I would definitely encourage the city to continue to pursue as they implement many of the action items within CCAT.
That's helpful, and making me realize that we have an outreach team here, at least in OEQS, and they play a critical and vital role in making sure that what we're doing within the city gets to our residents. So that's a really good point. Kevin, I think Kevin, have you been manning the questions? I think folks have been asking questions, but I haven't been following them.
Yes, we've got a few questions. One question that I think is, hang on, I'm lost it here for a second. Oh, here we go. One question that is kind of a general question, but I think it's something that comes up over and over is, how can young people, the youth, become more involved in substantive ways in the decision-making process for environmental initiatives in the community. And I think this is a good group to be able to help answer that. So I'll just go ahead and put that out there.
Yes, I think to incorporate youth into sustaining the climate in the future is about education. I'm very big on it. My nonprofit, Jobby Freeman's Town Association, mission is to educate and to bring resources to the community. So my mission in my organization is environmental. Our most educating part of Jobby Freeman Town is environmental and climate change. So how I implement that, I'm always visual in the community. I'm always discussing at meetings about Jobby issues. Always talking to the kids. I do cleanup with the children. You know, most people see cleanup with adults, you know, in community cleanups. My thing is children. Every cleanup I have, I host it for children because that'll educate children. It's like when they're outside, you know, eating their hot chips and Lucas and soda pops and everything while they outside playing, to show them, don't just throw it in your community, throw it in the trash, you know. And but how do I implement that? Come join me with this cleanup. You know, I ride around, collect them all up, and we just, so it's a small initiative, but it's a start. So education is power to include children, the youth.
Hey, Carlos, I want to collaborate on that response. And at EPA, we do have the President's Environmental Youth Award. And this is a big deal for those children between kinder to sixth grade and high school, that they get recognition for something that they did in their community. And I can tell you, a couple of years back, actually before a couple of years back, they used to fly to the White House to get recognition there with actually staff from the president if he was not available, but somebody from EPA will accompany and make sure that they had, you know, that level of recognition. And a couple of, you know, last year we had a winner from Louisiana. The year before we had one winner from Frisco and Houston, but this is available in our webpage. If you go epa.gov/education/President's Environmental Youth Award, you'll find the information there. And I'm using this venue to market that tool that we have available for this, you know, planting the seed for the youth so that they get, you know, some idea of what's actually there for them to take on and feel good about. And this is a great tool we have. So thank you, Carlos, for having us here.
And I know, you know, our office, we do visit DISD schools, particularly during Earth Month. And some of that work is being done within these few weeks. You know, I'm wondering if we, I don't know if Judy is on and she can speak to it, but, you know, do we visit schools outside of Earth Month? That's something we can look at and have more regular conversations with our kids to make sure they're getting the message.
I don't know if Judy's on, but I can answer that. That
Okay.
my air quality group, our visits to schools have been way down since COVID hit, of course. But prior to that, we frequently visited Dallas ISD schools to present on air quality issues and career days and other events. But like I say, that's kind of dropped off in the last couple of years. Hopefully it'll start to come back, but because it was always something that I enjoyed and my team enjoyed. It was always amazing how intelligent the questions were from third graders. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, they know way more than I ever did in the third grade. So
That's great. No, thank you for that. Are there any more questions? I think we have 5 to 7 minutes for this panel.
There's a few more questions. Let me see if I can kind of scan through this here. There was one comment directed to Tamikia that just was, "You rock, Tamikia," so I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. It's for the people. My passion is for the people. And I'm learning as I go. You know, I'm learning the rules, the regulations, the policies, anything that will help me organize in the Jobby community, in any community, because I am a CAG member, a Superfund CAG member on the lane plating Superfund site that is in the city of Dallas. So anything that I can bring back or learn, I'm awesome and I'm up for the fight, because it's all about the quality of life of the people. Thank you, everyone, for the support.
Well, thank you, Tamikia. It's been a joy. It's always a pleasure working with you. There's a question here that is sort of a general question, but I'll go ahead and so in case we don't have time to address it later. Does code compliance work with residents to report environmental issues from local Dallas businesses and industry? And so I guess that the gist of that question is how do we work with other city departments on environmental issues?
So
Well,
I'll start. I know that's
Yeah.
something that I've been looking into that, and I know that you know, often we get complaints from our neighbors about various issues, whether it be odor complaints, garbage complaints, illegal parking, illegal dumping, or what have you. And I have seen, since I've over the last three months being here, I have seen you know, when that happens, multiple departments will go out. So we'll go out, code will go out, you know, and other departments will go out and investigate to see if there are any violations under their purview. Now, you know, I don't. You know, can we do it? Can we do that in a more coordinated way? That's perhaps something that we can discuss. Typically, when I see that these issues arising, you know, someone will complain to their council member, and then the council member will forward that to us, all the departments, and then the departments will respond. You know, I don't know if that's the best process. That's the process we have, at least that I've seen. But other folks who are perhaps more have been here longer than I have, representing the city, can speak to that if the city folks want to talk. But otherwise, you know, I'm not sure what you guys have seen on the resident side.
Well, as Commissioner Darrell, I have made a complaint to 311 about an environmental issue. The city does need to improve that. I have mentioned that at our commission meeting too, with urban design, about how can we improve the 311 system for environmental report. So I think we still have a long ways to improve that through urban design and not land use, urban design in the city council to improve it. So my suggestion is that 311 department needs to have a certain group of people for the environmental reports, you know, and they need to regulate how they respond. Just like when you call 311 for a dog, you call 311, oh, this dog just chased me down the street. They here in 20 minutes or less, right? We need the same exact response when it comes to environmental report. Because today it's windy, the dust is big. I call it in at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the evening about the dust in the sky, it's cloudy and everything. They don't come out to the next day at 2 or 3 in the evening, and no dust is nowhere to be seen. So we need to implement the same response times, just like the animal department does. When I call 311 and say it's dusty, these rocks is blowing everywhere, in 30-45 minutes a investigator needs to come out, just like a dog. And I know it's possible because before they implemented the new response to dog attacks, they was receiving a lot of dog attacks and complaints, and a resident of Dallas was attacked and killed. So after that, they upgraded the system when reporting dogs and stuff, and so they improved their response time. And I have called them myself, and I know for a fact, as a resident, they come out in between 20 and 30 minutes. So we just need to implement that same response time to environmental issues. That's just the new improvement that it needs. That's in the residents side.
Yeah, no, so when they're environmental specific concerns, I know that you can call 311, and we OEQS should be getting those, and we should be responding in a timely manner. And I think at least from what I've heard, at least for the odor nuisance complaints, we initially were responding the same day, so that was good. But I'll definitely take that information back to make sure that we are responding in a timely way.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's it for our panel. Thank you, panelists. I know I had fun. I don't know about you.
I did too, and I learned a lot. And Dr. Nancy opened her door to me. So Dr. Nancy, if you're still on the call, I will be reaching out to you about the Superfund site. So thank you for that invite.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but yeah.
No.
We heard you. We heard you. And we got all ears. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I will be reaching out to both of y'all. So
Yes,
keep
ma'am.
your email eye open. Thank y'all so much.
I'll pass it to Assistant Director Susan Alvarez for the next panel.
So I'm back, and I am so glad to be here. I am set up for the most fun. So we are now in our second year of implementation, and the plan overall is extremely comprehensive. As Ms. Blackman says, there's 97 actions in 8 areas. Our work plan this year, as Ms. Blackman said, is 263 actions, or milestones within 73 actions. I got to confess, that's way beyond the ability of the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. Fortunately for us, we have a fabulous team at the city that is working on implementing the plan. We have called this team LEAF, which is short for Leading Environmental Action Forward. And I'm really excited. It's about 20 departments that are working on implementing the climate plan in Dallas. I am really excited today to be joined by 3 different leaders in 3 different departments that are making an impact in the climate plan. They're engaging their other staff in their departments to make environmental action, and it's all good. The first is Francis Eccles McGee, who's environmental coordinator 3 in our Park and Recreation Department in the environmental division. She oversees the environmental management system requirements, overall environmental compliance within the department. And then she has instigated a really special program with her colleagues in parks. It's a program called Eco Warriors, and it brings together park staff who want to promote positive impacts, and basically they're developing environmental initiatives within their department that are leading a lot of action across the city. And so things like using green cleaning products, piloting environmentally friendly landscape practices, reducing their greenhouse gases. They're just doing a lot of innovative things and serving as a leader across the department. I also have Dr. Srinivasan with our Building Services Department. He is leading some of the city's actions towards resilience. He just implemented a contract Wednesday that basically doubles the amount of solar energy on city facilities and improves 3 different city facilities relative to energy efficiency. And then last but not least, we have our OEQS very own Danielle McClelland, who has been with the city for about 20 years in various aspects. But right now she is leading our Zero Waste group related to the multifamily recycling program and providing operational support relative to outreach and engagement to our friends in the sanitation department as they update the local solid waste management plan, including measures towards greater recycling. And so with that, I want to welcome you all. And we can either do self-introductions or I can start in with some questions. And I think I'm going to start in with some questions. So Francis, I'm going to pick on you first. So if we are creating a fair-minded approach to sustainable planning and maintenance of our urban ecosystems, how can that help maximize climate benefits? And how do you see the Parks Department furthering action within the CCAP?
Thank you so much for having me here today. I appreciate it. So the Park and Recreation Department, we're doing a lot of great projects that are furthering the CCAP. I wanted to highlight a few of them for you. We do have a pollinator conservation program that includes our designated wildflower areas. We have a Blackland Prairie program, and we also have certified pollinator gardens. So these programs, the goal is to increase abundance and diversity of native bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds in the parks, but they also have the environmental benefit of reducing air emissions associated with mowing and trimming and just general maintenance. Also, since these habitats are using native plants, they conserve water. So with our designated wildflower areas, we have about 70 parks that have these areas that are marked off, and you'll usually see a sign that says no mow area designated wildflowers. And then for our Blackland Prairie program, within Dallas Parks, there's been 14 prairie remnants that our urban biologist, Brett Johnson, has identified. And that's about 162 acres. We also have 11 monarch way stations that are in parks throughout Dallas. And these are particularly important because they provide milkweed, nectar sources, and shelter to sustain monarch butterflies as they're migrating. So I have one other project that I wanted to mention too. This is a newer one called our tree cycling program. And this program is diverting forestry chips from our forestry operations from the landfill. So the Park and Recreation Department, we were really excited. We received a grant from the North Central Texas Council of Governments to purchase a trommel. And that's a really large piece of equipment that the wood chips are put into, and it turns and it sorts into larger pieces that will be used for mulch and smaller pieces that will be cooked and then used for compost. And this will, of course, provide compost and mulch for our park maintenance group to use. So we eventually will no longer have to purchase compost and mulch, so it'll save money. But we're also diverting all those wood chips from the landfill and getting to put them back into the parks. So this is a really great program that we're excited about.
Likewise, we've seen a lot of public interest in that program and in recycling, both recycling and composting. Since we're kind of in that vein, I'm going to switch over to Danielle. Recycling benefits our climate change efforts in so many ways. It reduces energy, translates into less harmful emissions, limits the amount of raw materials needed. That can also help protect native natural habitats. Can you share how the Zero Waste team is expanding its portfolio of services to reduce what goes in the landfill and minimizes emissions? I know you also have several very innovative pilot projects going on right now.
Absolutely, and thank you for the chance to share. Um, as you've outlined, our zero waste team supports the Sanitation Services Department in diverting materials from McComas Bluff landfill. Dallas owns and operates one of the largest landfills in the state of Texas, and our goal is to eventually make it not necessary for our operation. We know that's a long-term goal under our local solid waste management plan. And so what we do is we work with residents to make sure that they are diverting the proper materials from the waste stream. And we're not doing things like putting recyclables into our garbage carts. Instead, we have a curbside recycling audit program that looks into our recycling containers to make sure that those are containing the correct materials, that we're not putting, for example, plastic bags into the recycling roll carts or other materials that are considered contamination. And that's because Dallas, like so many other cities, processes those materials, and we divert them from our landfill. We're able to sell the materials, and everything that gets picked up in our recycling roll carts in Dallas that is not garbage, and unfortunately we do have a small percentage of materials that end up as garbage, but those that are not garbage do get processed and baled. And so we think it's really important for Dallas residents and all residents who recycle to know that when you recycle correctly, you're helping to do a number of things besides extend the life of our landfill, so we don't have to go buy another 3,000 or 4,000 acres to bury our trash, but you're also helping to keep your sanitation rate low. You're helping to make sure that we don't need to mine new and virgin materials to create new products. So we're able to basically fulfill that life cycle of products. And so for our team, it starts literally at the curbside. We review thousands of Dallas households every year for compliance. When folks get it right, we leave them a tag letting them know, hey, great job, you're doing good, keep it up. And if they're putting the wrong kinds of materials into those recycling roll carts, we also let them know that, hey, you know, your holiday lights, for example, are not recyclable, or your Easter eggs are not recyclable. Leave that kind of stuff out of your cart. And we are this year extending that program. Sue, you referenced our multifamily recycling ordinance. So the Dallas City Council authorized, and we are now administering a multifamily recycling ordinance that requires property managers and owners of multifamily properties in Dallas to offer access to recycling service to their residents. That ordinance also requires that they provide recycling education. And so what our team does is we work with those property owners and managers, number one, to make sure that they're aware of the ordinance, which went into effect January 1st, 2020. We also make sure that they know what is required of them under the ordinance. So, for example, that they offer a minimum level of service to their residents, which is 11 gallons per household per unit. By comparison, under the city's collection program, we pick up 96-gallon roll carts every week. So it's a little bit different ratio, but we found that Dallas has one of the more aggressive multifamily recycling ordinances in the state. The other thing that we do is we require haulers who pick up that recycling from those multifamily properties to be permitted through the city of Dallas and to provide us an annual report of data that is collected through that program. And so we're able to see and quantify the diversion of recyclable materials from multifamily properties. And so in this next year, we are extending our Take a Peek program so that we are actually going to be looking into the recycling containers at multifamily properties. We're really excited to be able to do that and to share what we are learning with our families in the multifamily sector. Our training and education to the multifamily properties is done in partnership not only with the Apartment Association of Greater Dallas, but also with Dallas Code Compliance. The administrative enforcement of that ordinance is through the property's multi-tenant permit. And so we work very closely with code inspectors as they are doing their routine inspections on properties to verify that recycling is available on site. And that's because, as we have learned, more than half of Dallas residents live in multifamily properties. Another program that we're super excited about, and we've got lots, so stop me when I go too far. But another program that we're super excited about is that Green Business Recognition Program. as I referenced, Dallas does have a law requiring multifamily properties to offer access to recycling. But at present, we do not have a similar ordinance in place for commercial establishments. And that's because what we have found through our research, but also through partnership with other nonprofits and organizations that talk to businesses, is that for their own purposes, a lot of businesses and companies in Dallas, especially those large corporations, are already diverting materials. And so this Green Business Recognition Program is a way for the city to recognize the efforts of businesses that have voluntarily not only reduced their impact at the landfill by diverting solid waste, but also are engaged in sustainable practices that help them to conserve energy, protect air quality through things like offering dark bus passes to their employees, or bicycle rideshare programs to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions from things like just going out to grab lunch. Also, those that conserve water, and as I said, also implement other sustainable practices like voluntarily diverting organics. And I'm very pleased to announce that just this past month, the City of Dallas Environmental Commission recognized one such business, Bank of America Plaza in downtown Dallas, as the city's first platinum certified green business. And so Bank of America Plaza is not only most days outlined in green neon in the city of Dallas's skyline, but they can also now boast of being one of the greenest facilities in the city of Dallas. And so we're also implementing a pilot program under CCAP for the diversion of organic and recyclable waste at special events that are permitted by the city, at large special events, I should say. And so we have been on site at the Turkey Trot, where they collected recyclable materials and allowed us to educate their attendees on what kinds of materials can be recycled in Dallas. And also the Deep Ellum Arts Festival did the same. And we're very excited this week. I mean, this week is just great with the North Texas Climate Symposium, but also with EarthX. We are partnering with the EarthX organizers to offer organics diversion from EarthX. So at the convention center, there will be separate containers for organic material and signage for attendees to raise awareness to encourage the diversion of these materials from our landfill. And, you know, like I said, we've got a small but mighty team that's engaged in this work, and we could not make it happen without the partnership of businesses and organizations like the Apartment Association of Greater Dallas and many others, as well as the leadership from our executive level here in my department. Shout out to Sue and to Carlos, and of course also at the city council level and the commission level. So we're grateful for that support and are just, you know, really enthusiastic about the work that we're doing. Sue, you're on mute. I talked so long, you muted yourself.
So I did want to mention real quickly, because we get a lot of interest about ability to divert food waste. And you mentioned what we're doing at city-sponsored events. Do you want to just very briefly provide a little bit of information on our food waste pilot that's going on in Bishop Arts right now?
Yes, through a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the City of Dallas is partnering with the Bishop Arts Merchants Association to collect food scraps from a small number of restaurants that are operating in that area, and also from special events. So where we are in that process right now is we are looking for, we have an RFP out for a vendor to provide the service. I believe that solicitation period has closed, and we are looking to launch that pilot program in the Bishop Arts District area this fall.
Fabulous. Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate your joining us. Srinivas is sitting back because he's thinking that he's going to get away with no questions. And nothing could be further than the truth, because he is very quietly moving mountains with respect to the city's building portfolio. Many people may not recognize that we actively manage about 800 different buildings. And Srinivas has on his plate probably a good fourth to a third of those buildings. And he's been implementing several measures to look at how we can manage energy more efficiently as a city, and how we can move forward into things like setting up resilience centers, looking at self-generation on power. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Srinivas to see if he might be able to share some of the great things that he is doing towards advancing some of our emissions reduction goals here in Dallas.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for the introduction. So again, good morning, everyone. So my name is Srinivas. I'm the Energy Program Manager with the Building Services Department here with the city. At our department, we started the Energy Management Program about 2 years ago. The initial steps we took as part of the program is to do the energy benchmarking for our city facilities. So far, we have energy benchmarked about 140 city buildings, and our target is to benchmark 200 buildings by end of 2023. So, the intent of benchmarking is to help us identify city buildings which are performing poorly in terms of energy usage compared to similar type of buildings. Based on the energy benchmarking data, we so far for the 140 buildings, we have been working with the State Energy Conservation Office for doing some energy assessments and feasibility studies to identify energy projects for the city buildings. So I'm very grateful and thankful for the City Council, the Environmental and Sustainability Committee, and the Environmental Commission for their continued support for these energy projects that we identified. So we'll be implementing some of the projects in the next 6 months to reduce the energy for the city facilities. Being said that, we within our department, we also maintain the city facilities. So we emphasize with the maintenance team to making sure that we sustain these energy projects. Just installing them is one thing, but making sure that we sustain these energy projects to have the savings over the period of time. And we also work with our renovation group. So we tend to emphasize on installing high efficiency equipment for city facilities, installing Energy Star rated roofs for any roof replacement projects. So some of those are the initiatives that we've been working here with the department to help reduce the energy usage for our city building.
The work you're doing is so important relative to the city's environmental footprint. I'm curious how partnerships may have helped you in your efforts. And this question actually could go to all three of our fabulous panelists.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. I think to have a successful program, collaboration is important. I think we tend to collaborate with other departments especially like for energy benchmarking. So because we need a lot of information regarding the building, so we reach out to different departments within the city to gathering that information, and at the same time collaborating with them. When we identify energy projects, making sure that all the work has been coordinated to have a successful project. And at the same time, making sure that those energy projects have been sustained.
That's great.
Yeah, and for we've been working with Srinivas at the park with Park and Rec, and 3 of our rec centers have been identified for solar. We get solar at Fred's Rec Center and Pleasant Oaks, and then new lighting fixtures and controls at Juanita Craft Rec Center. So we're working with Srinivas on that, and he's been working with our planning and design group. So it is really exciting.
That's awesome. How can the public work?
Submitted as
I'm
part of the
sorry.
grants.
What?
That
I'm
was like an
curious as to
echo.
how you, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I think it was some sort of delay.
Okay. I'm curious as to how members of the public can get information on the great things that you're doing and or be able to participate in some of your respective programs.
First for that one. So if you go to the Dallas Park and Recreation website, you can find out about a lot of our events that are coming up this weekend. Of course, we are celebrating lots of Earth Day events. It's Smart Park Day is April 23rd, and that's going to be at several locations. So you can look at the calendar and you can pull up how to register for events. We also have tree planting events. We're moving into the warmer months, so we won't have any the next few months, but coming in the fall, if you're interested in participating in our branching out program, that's planting trees in our parks. You can go to our citywide forestry group has a website. So City of Dallas Forestry, and look that up, and they'll also list out any tree planting events coming up, and those will also be listed on the Dallas Park and Recreation website.
So there was a question in the chat about composting in Dallas, and that sparked a reminder that Dallas is right now in the middle of updating our local solid waste management plan, also called a zero waste plan. To learn more about the update to that plan, just visit dallaszerowaste.com, and you can find out all about where we are in the process. But to answer publicly the question that was placed in the chat, the person wanted to know where are we on composting or organics diversion. So an important first step is understanding the waste stream, and the reliability of that necessitates that we separate brush waste from organic waste or brush from bulk waste. And right now those are picked up commingled in Dallas. And so the update to that plan will be making recommendations for how Dallas can lay the groundwork for a organics diversion program to make use of composting that is permitted at the McComas Bluff landfill.
My understanding is that plan is coming forward to council here within the next month. Is that correct?
Yes, it is on schedule to be shared with council in the coming weeks.
Great, thank you. We've got just a few minutes left. Are there any other questions in the chat that our panelists might be able to answer?
So there's a number of questions about the composting of yard waste and everything, and I guess this kind of something that's directed both toward Francis and maybe Danielle as well. But a lot of people would like to know if it's possible to set up a program where yard waste could be dropped off at a city park where it could then be composted and then of course reused as compost. And I just wanted to kind of put that out there to see if there were any comments that you guys could address on that.
This is.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fran.
Go ahead, Danielle. You answer first, and I'll follow up after.
Okay, so what I will say for my colleagues in the Sanitation Services Department, we don't currently have the infrastructure in place to support a citywide composting operation. Obviously, we have permission from TCEQ to have composting on site, but there are a number of steps that need to be followed in order to either establish a city-run composting operation or to enter into contract with a service provider for that. That said, our team does support composting education for folks who are interested in backyard composting. And we do have a series of classes supportive of educating Dallas residents on that, which will be initiating over the summer and fall. But at present, the city doesn't have the infrastructure in place to support composting for 240,000 single family residential customers.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Francis, did you have you want to follow up?
Yeah, and I think, someone had mentioned parks as being a possible place where the grass clippings and leaves could be dropped off. That is definitely something that we could look at in the future. I know for right now our tree cycling program is fairly new, so we are working to get it efficiently working and then looking at what we can do in the future on how to expand it.
And I will say that a number of the programs that we've implemented in Dallas have been funded through various grants. And so we're always looking at possible funding sources. Right now, the North Central Texas Council of Governments has just closed their grant application period, but there are always other funding sources for pilot programs and to help us learn what volume of materials we might be able to collect in Dallas, and also about education for making sure that people avail themselves of the opportunity to do that. But currently in Dallas, our focus is on education, and a possible pilot program could be coming soon to a 214-972 area code near you.
Awesome. So one last question for our panelists this morning, and that is a key theme of both the CCAP and this symposium is equity. How can your department be most effective when acting to advance emissions reduction and protecting vulnerable communities?
So Sue, one thing that I will say is in the city of Dallas, obviously, equity is one of our core values as an organization. And so what we've been doing in the Zero Waste team is looking at not only how we provide service across the city, but recognizing the opportunity to tailor needs based on specific zip codes. And so one of the pilot programs that we are developing now for implementation in the fall of this year is a pilot program that we're tentatively calling Bring a Bag. We know that in a number of Dallas households and neighborhoods, folks can afford to purchase reusable bags because they're available widely at grocery stores in their neighborhoods. But Dallas also has a number of neighborhoods that are served, that serve lower income areas where folks may not be able to have the income to purchase those bags. And so what we're looking to do is encourage grocery stores that are serving those populations to offer paper bags rather than plastic bags, and also making reusable bags available to folks in those neighborhoods. And doing this helps us not only to identify a need that we believe exists in some of these targeted areas, but also to provide waste reduction education at the point of decision making, so that as people are purchasing their groceries or their sundry items for the week or for the month, thinking about yes, we should also say no styrofoam. Thank you. Thinking about what kind of waste they're bringing into their homes. So encouraging them to, for example, not make items in single-use purchase, but rather buying in bulk, not bringing into their homes things that are packaged in styrofoam or that cannot be reused, and also using the bags. The reusable bags. In Dallas, as many of you are aware, we did for a time have a ban on plastic bags, so we're not bringing that back. The legislature has prohibited cities from enacting that kind of legislation, and so we did have to repeal our plastic bag ban, but we can encourage folks to continue to use reusable bags. And so in communities and in neighborhoods where there may be strains on the family's budget for purchasing bags, we want to introduce the concept and help make those bags available at no cost to those residents.
Thank you. Do any of my panelists have any closing remarks relative to the future of CCAP?
I would like to say that I'm optimistic about the future of CCAP. We have great city leadership. We have citizen support. We have our Eco Warriors group within our Park and Recreation Department. So many people are motivated and ready to work towards, reducing our environmental impact and increasing sustainability. So I am optimistic for the future and us continuing to work on these CCAP targets.
And what I'll say
Fabulous.
is, yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
what I'll say in summation is that obviously the work that, for example, Fran and I do is specifically targeted to environmental. But what I love about CCAP is that it pulls in departments and helps them see how, while they may not consider their operations having an impact on our local climate or environment, how everyone and the work that we all do really can impact. And so from things as simple as allowing, where it's possible, work from home so that we can reduce our personal emissions while we're driving round trip to meetings or back and forth to the offices. Where it's allowable, the city does support that. And I think it's a great thing. It encourages us to walk the talk. I think that's very important when we're trying to change behavior and mindset across the organization.
Thank you. With that, y'all are fabulous. I appreciate what you're doing every day. I appreciate your sharing what your departments are doing with us today. And with that, I'm going to very cheerfully turn it back over to our director, Carlos.
And just ditto, just thank you so much for everything y'all are doing. I mean, clearly, CCAP is a citywide effort with so many partners doing so many things. And thank you for sharing your examples today. So with that, hopefully that was informative to the audience. I'd like to thank the team that put this symposium together, particularly Susan Alvarez, Judy Schmidt, Samar Iqbal, Daniel Pollack, Kevin Overton, Farah Andrews, and Aaron Deal. Again, for more information about the CCAP implementation, please visit DallasClimateAction.com, and have a great Earth Month, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.